This unit is Get Started with External Services. This is the first unit on external services on the Admin Intermediate Trail, which is part of the Build Your Admin Career on Salesforce. My name is Jeff Alhadeff, and you're welcome to join me as I work my way through this unit. If I come across something that seems challenging, I'll link to it in the description below, which you could click on to then open. Or just listen along as I ramble and try to explain this to myself as best as I can. Hopefully it helps you as well. School's out, kids are home. You might hear banging or screaming. Usually not, but it happens. So here we are. Okay, after completing this unit, you'll be able to explain what an external service is, identify use cases for external services, describe the high-level flow of an external service. A high-level flow sounds like a plumbing problem from an upper story. I wish there was a less business jargony term that we could use for this. Why external services? External services is a feature within Salesforce that leverages declarative tools to connect to an external endpoint, such as a credit service provider, and brings its logic into Salesforce. Okay, this is going to be a rough one. Before we get into detail about what an external service is and how it works, let's discuss why you might use the feature. Here are just a couple of examples. Okay, so I like that they're trying to start with this benefit statement. Make your new Salesforce org users automatic collaborators for external org-related applications. Maybe you want to have access to payroll information app so they can look up their own timesheet and pay data. You can register an external service and create a flow that triggers that takes inputs such as user ID. When you create a user, the triggers fire and add the user as a collaborator has access for the payroll app. It would take me so long to rewrite this, so I didn't use business jargon. I think the main problem with it is that it's trying to tell us too much information at this point. That's why I'm so darn confused. Do I really need to know that register an external service to create a flow with triggers that takes inputs such as user ID? I'm like, whoa, my brain's melting. Okay, you could make your new users log into other things. Good. Next, connect to a credit service that determines if credit is extended to an account in your org. You can register your external service and create a flow that includes inputs like order amount and credit terms. When the flow runs, it updates the credit terms for the order associated with the account. Boy, yeah, that hurts. Connect to credit service that determines. What's a credit service? Should I know what that is? Yeah. I know in Google you normally don't have to type in the question, but just Googling credit service was giving me local listings. A credit service organization is a business that charges a fee to assist a buyer to obtain an extension of credit. Okay, I don't know if I really understand this. A credit service is an organization. A credit service organization is a business that charges a fee to assist a buyer to obtain an extension of credit or to improve their credit rating. There are many other applications for using external services. In fact, there are probably as many applications as there are external services providers. Once you learn the basics, you can determine what your business cases are and use this feature as you need. Let's move on to learn more about what an external service is, now that we know what it does. With external services, you use declarative tools to import Swagger. Or an integer-based API definitions right into Salesforce using a schema. Once you import the definitions, you can create a flow based on the Apex classes generated from your external registration. Hold on. Why do this? Well, these terms, Swagger and inter-agent definitions, API schema, are geared towards developers. We don't leave admins in the lurch. In the coming units, we'll walk you through a schema definition, help you use declarative tools to register an external service, and get you going to creating a simple flow, so hang on. In the meantime, let's look at the picture via a handy diagram to see how external services work. And don't worry, we don't quiz you about APIs or inter-agent schemas. While we're looking, though, notice that much of the workflow to register an external service of your own is done declaratively via the external services registration page in Lightning Flow. What's a REST API? Representational state transfer. Style that defines a set of constraints to be used for creating web services. Okay, it's like a requesting systems. Okay, so basically it's like a set of standards, and if it conforms to it, then we could talk to each other. So the external service provider, the developer, inter-agent or Swagger-based schema defined, named credential added, external services registration auto-generated, flow created, flow run, Salesforce for third-party system. Okay. Here's the gist of what's happening. As you work your way through the units in this module, we cover each step in more detail. That's good. An external services provider, such as a bank, shares its REST-based API schema specification. If you don't know what REST is, that's okay. I do. It's a protocol language set of standards. Think of the specification as a type of technical constraint. Keep looking. I think there's something happening out there. Okay. Based on the specification, a developer, or maybe even you, creates a schema definition that describes the API. I don't know what a schema definition is. A Salesforce administrator declaratively creates a named credential to authenticate to the service's endpoint using the URL provided by the external service provider. I hate the term endpoint. The endpoint, because but endpoint. It's like business developer jargon. The endpoint is simply what exposes the web services resources that external services need to interact with. A Salesforce administrator declaratively registers the service and uses both the named credentials and schema definition during the registration process. External services automatically imports the definitions into your org and generates Apex actions, which are available immediately in Lightning Flow. A Salesforce administrator declaratively creates a flow using external services, generate Apex actions. Users run the flow during runtime. External services sends a call out to the service's endpoint. The service returns output data based on the schema's definition. Data is retrieved, created, updated, or deleted. It's true that you need a schema definition and that creating one is not a declarative process. I don't know what a declarative process is. Depending on your background, you can create the schema definition or have your developer do this. In the next unit, we cover the ins and outs, or more accurately, the inputs and outputs. That was cute. I have a schema definition of what it is. After your schema is defined, you can use the declarative tools already in Salesforce to pull data you need into your org. Okay, this sounded exciting. It didn't make much sense. But basically, it sounds like this sounds like this is a way for getting information that's outside of Salesforce into Salesforce. And that's important because you could then connect it with flows, which we learned about in the previous module, to then be able to do all sorts of things automatically, like create, update, or delete based off of that flow. And well, I guess having a flow there isn't necessary. It sort of feels like, I mean, it's not like from like the code, like it doesn't need to be there, but from like a business use case, you're going to want it there because that way you could automatically do stuff with it based off the flow. So that's my summary for the unit. Getting information from outside Salesforce into inside Salesforce, and then being able to do stuff with it. That sounds cool. That sounds cool. And by the way, we're going to learn about more stuff in the next units. Let me take the quiz. Okay, I'm not really sure if I got these right. I normally don't like to show my answers on quizzes because I don't like to give any things away, but I just have to say, at a high level, like, is that a story? Is that an airplane? We're in Washington State. Do you have to be in marijuana? Like, what does a high level mean? Alright, I'm going to go see what I got wrong. Okay, my advice for the quiz is to read the questions well. That's all. We'll live to see another day tomorrow.